Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, I just had my second weekend of running Dungeons and Dragons for kids at the library. And if you haven't, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, we'll go back and watch the videos about that. But we uh, we played last week. This week we played again, and I found some things. It's a ridiculously long video actually for last week. This video is not going to be quite so long. And I found the picture, the incredible picture I drew of the monster that they had to face, or the monsters, things that escaped from the hobgoblins. So this week, I decided I was going to try to, fix some of the things that went wrong, and I sent some emails to the parents of the kids, and I had filled out the character sheets a little bit more based on what the kids had told me they wanted to do. And so let's see, I got to obscure the name to protect the innocent. So get a little bit more information here. We still had to do a little bit more information at time of game. But I was able to send that to them, and they were able to print that out. They actually printed it out like at the beginning of the game, and their mom hadn't printed it out. And I also put up some videos if they wanted to see them that were kind of more instructional in nature, like how does this game actually work and how to make a character. I don't know if they've actually watched any of that, and if they didn't, well, at least I still had fun making the video and learned some more making the videos. The other thing I figured I'd had to do for these kids, because two of them just really were lost, or they were all sort of lost. The three kids in general, but two of them had picked spellcasters, and there's a lot of stuff going on with that. Oh yeah, thanks for the John Spencer says constant communication is great. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So anyhow, once again, I'm going to obscure the names to protect the innocent. So I made a couple sheets, and this was pretty much done by cutting and pasting from. I think I cut and pasted from a digital copy of the player's handbook, but I think I probably could have cut and pasted from the wiki. In fact, my friend Eloy did the same thing. He did something for his daughter for the game that we played in on Wednesday, and only afterwards, I said, "Oh, yeah, I guess I'll do that too." And man, did you notice that when you do that, you have to change all the words because it messes up all the letters? It's like, yeah, it takes time. So it took time, and then afterwards he goes, "I probably could have cut and pasted from the wiki." I'm like, I could have done that too, because what I did that day was I did it for my wizard. For the game that I'm playing with his daughter, and I also did it for the two kids' characters, for a cleric and a druid. And of course, for the cleric and the druid, I had to print out more because if I understand correctly, they pretty much have access to all the spells, and they had some cantrips that they had to choose. So I had this kind of available. They still haven't cast much in the way of spells, although I did with the 8-year-old kid that's playing the druid, who really just wants to wild shape. That's what he wants to do. He wants to turn into a dragon or something resembling a dragon. I coached him a little bit in terms of, hey, you could use this poison spray right here, which he used to great effect, and so that worked out pretty decent. So I did all this like front end work. It was actually a lot of work, but it helped. It was good for me. It's not something I would normally have done. I would have done it for kids anyway, to be honest. But it helped me really kind of wrap my head around a lot of the parts of the game that I kind of knew but didn't exactly know. So that was actually really good. The Saturday I opened the window because I talked to the guy from the library. I said, "What do you want me to do about Saturday?" Because nobody's committing to Saturday. He said, "Well, keep it open right now, and you can just charge me." I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." So I did that, and one kid showed up. It was the kid, the 13-year-old kid who had his camera off last time. His audio was, he said, "My audio was a little messed up last time." I'm like, "Okay." And I even asked him, "Hey, I kind of noticed you kind of hanging in the background. Is everything all right?" He said, "There's something wrong?" And he said, "No." But so, I don't know how communicative he really is, because I probably would have told adults, "Nah, nothing's wrong," even if something was wrong. But I figured I'd give him the opportunity. So I had a one-shot set up, and I had a one-shot set up using the Uncharted Worlds PBTA rules, because I wanted to try something a little bit different, and it was literally just a spy sort of thing. It starts in medias res, where somebody has stolen this bioweapon, BX-81. Where do you think I got that number? And it is a biological weapon the U.S. government made, but they didn't make an antidote to yet. And there's an organization, Spectra, because these kids have never heard of Spectra, so I can totally steal that organization. They're stealing it. And so there were chases involved, and I think there were car chases and bullets, and he actually ended up, his Lamborghini, because he decided he had a Lamborghini, the engine got shot, and so he grabbed a car from somebody else and used a kind of a command check. And there was a complication, so the car had a baby in it. And so next thing you know, there's an Amber Alert, and he realizes, oh my gosh, it's for the car I've got, and I'm a member of an agency that doesn't actually officially exist, so they're not going to back me up. And so it was fun, but he blew through this whole thing and got to a logical end in 45 minutes. And so we've got a 2-hour block that I'm like, supposed to prepare stuff for, have stuff for. And it was one player. So I said, hey, why don't we do something with your with a D&D character you have? And he said, well, the only character I have right now is this rogue I made for the other game. I said, okay, let's use him. It really has nothing to do with the other game, and we're just going to use the same stats. He's like, cool. So I set up a little thing for him, and I asked him, what does your character do on his off time? It's like, well, he hangs at the casino. He owns a casino. How's that for character poisoning? He's got a casino, kids. He's first level rogue, with 0 XP, but who cares? He's got a casino, and so I have a couple, toughs go there and give him this proposition. Hilarity ensues, and I actually had the big bad evil guy be the wizard, the stats of the wizard that I made for Eloy's game, and in 45 minutes we managed to blow through that as well. So it was really fast. I was like, man, I have got to prepare scenarios with a lot more meat or depth to them for these off weeks, because I don't know how many kids are going to show up, and I'm pretty sure that part of why it went so fast is because it was just one player, and it's always kind of awkward, one player and one GM, and we really don't know each other that well, and it's a kid, it's like a 13-year-old and a 52-year-old dude, and I'm a nerd, and we can talk all kinds of nerd stuff, but you get the idea. So it helps if there's more players. But I realized, well, I can't guarantee that there's going to be more players or bank on that. So I better have some things that have more meat to them than what I originally thought. So I learned that lesson. Unfortunately, we had a good time. We were able to, kill an hour and a half of his time, and so it worked. Yeah. So today went really, really well. I enjoyed it. We had the other 2 kids that showed up that their mom forgot. And they know a lot more about the game than the 3 kids that I talked about last week. But their characters weren't quite 100% finished. They had some questions. These kids definitely have read the book a lot more and don't understand everything about the game. But the very first thing we did, we sat down. I'd sent the 3 kids that were a little more confused before character sheets with a lot more things filled out. The only thing I really didn't know for some of them is what skills they wanted to have proficiencies in. And so we talked about that. Between those 3 kids picking that, between getting a couple kids to pick names, because it's really hard. In fact, that 13-year-old kid that played yesterday, he finally decided his character's name is No Name. It's like, okay, dude, that's totally your name. And this other kids would play the dwarf cleric. The dwarf was called Bob, because I decided we're going to start calling him Bob until we came up with something else. And he came up with Oakenshield. Cool, whatever. I mean, that's classic. So his name is Bob Oakenshield. He says, no, it's Oakenshield. I'm like, okay, but sometimes we call him Bob. And, we laughed. We had some fun with it. And if he hates it, I'll stop. But, at that point, everybody was kind of laughing, and, including him. So it was kind of fun. It's amazing. They just couldn't think of names. And I had that time, but usually I pick something out of a hat. So I figured, well, it's going to be Bob until it's something else, pal. So they were able to pick their proficiencies, and the other kids, the other 2 kids that hadn't been there last week, they picked their proficiencies. They already knew what they wanted to have, and they just had, I think, a couple questions about armor class and where that was, because they couldn't find exactly where the armor class was in the book, which I'll talk about. I'm going to talk about this book and some of the other books, but not right now. I want to talk about the kids at the library. And in fact, though, my daughter stole this book. She took my dice and arranged them. And she's played Dungeons and Dragons before a couple times with a friend. She has some dice. I gave her some of the other dice I had that were like from Walmart. I think I did a review of those dice, the campaign dice. They're okay. And she wanted to borrow this to check some things out. Next thing you know, she's had this book for days. So I had to order another player's handbook. So now I'm out. I've bought 4 books from Wizards of the Coast and 2 box sets, which are over there. We'll talk about them at a different time. And let's see what else happened. I'm looking at stuff for the kids' ranger before the game. I'm like, and Eloy, or Jose rather, is playing a ranger in Eloy's game. And he mentioned something I completely forgot about, using this alternate ranger. So I'm reading about the ranger in Player's Handbook, and I'm like, dude, they don't get any kind of bonus for attacking their favorite enemies? Like, they don't get extra damage or anything? He goes, yeah, the Player's Handbook ranger sucks. In fact, and he sends me this thing like I print out from 2016 from Wizards of the Coast. I swear it's an official document. The Unearthed Arcana Ranger, which is kind of like a normal ranger. Like, he gets +2 to damage on the when he attacks his favorite enemies, and the favorite enemy list is a lot smaller, including because later on you get to choose greater favorite enemies. And in the beginning, you can choose beasts, fae, humanoids, monstrosities, or undead. You can choose humanoids rather than using a couple of them. I'm like, well, this looks like a lot more like a Ranger, and they only fixed a couple things. I mean, that's the big. But apparently, from what he says, the lead designers are still sticking by their guns and don't want to stick this improved Ranger in the latest Splat book. I think it's just Tasha's, whatever the heck it is. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was Jeremy Crawford. He's saying was really digging his heels in it and defending the Ranger he had made. I don't want to get this one. I don't want this to be a 5th edition video, or or just about that. We'll talk about that during. But anyhow, I said this is a lot cooler. So I said this is what we're going to do for your Ranger, and she really didn't know all that. A lot of the details. She knows, I think, more of the fluff about the Rangers. She was cool with that. Yes, humanoids. I get +2 to damage. That's cool because we're fighting hobgoblins. So that's badass. The other kid that knew more, the two brothers that sit together on a little piano bench, he was like, yeah, +2 damage, yes. And humanoids, yes. He was all pumped. He thought that was the greatest thing, that ever happened in his entire life. I said, yes, you're going to play a real Ranger, kid. And so that was pretty awesome. And at that point, pretty much what we did for the that first 25 minutes is then, even though the kids had picked all their proficiencies, they really didn't know what these final numbers were supposed to be. It was kind of a mystery to them that they were going to add their relevant ability score modifier and then their proficiency bonus to come up with it. And ditto for their attacks with weapons. The idea that, your to hit is going to be like, for this guy is +5 and his damage is +3 because his proficiency is 2, but his strength is +3. So it's, it took, at least for missile, for melee attacks. There's another kid that really didn't get the idea that there was a finesse weapon, or that the rapier is a finesse weapon, because he couldn't find a page in the player's handbook, which we'll talk about another time. So we got all that stuff down, and it was funny that both sets of kids really didn't have, they had less of an idea of how the proficiency worked and how they get that final modifier, and where your initiative actually came from. So I'm still wondering how much stuff happened on Roll20, and I like this sheet a lot better. This is another sheet that Wizards of the Coast has. It's an official sheet that I made my wizard on, Harold Heraldo, and instead of having the ability scores, let's see, obscuring the names to protect the innocent, all this listed alphabetically here, it's got them listed next to the relevant ability score modifier. I like that a lot better, because that way I was able to make up my little, what do I have in every single thing here, and it's a lot faster. I think it's a lot easier for the kids to remember. I don't see a form fillable version of this, which is sad because that's what I was sending them, already filled out. Also, no longer tethered. I've got this big long cord I bought from Amazon, and what's the company's name? Duckabell. Pretty good. This is a TRRS 4-pole cord because you need three rings. No, you need tip and 2 rings for the right, left, and microphone. So, good stuff here. I got the 8-foot version, so I can walk way back and get a book off my shelf if I want to. I could do that. See, I can get a book. I'm still talking to you guys. This body make me look fat? I tell you what, man, the gym has been tough this time. I've been working out like crazy. It's tougher to lose the weight, than it was a couple years ago. Anyhow, this video's not about that now, is it? So we got playing, and it was a blast. Pretty much what I did was I yanked the drawings of the sea wolf from U1, the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. I was able to kind of blow up the pictures enough, and I wish I could share them with you, but I didn't print them out. I just kind of, saved them as photographs and then used the feature in Zoom to share the photographs with them. So I was able to show them the bottom deck, I showed them the next deck, and I drew some, because I hadn't seen everything, I was able to draw them like what the captain's quarters and I think it was the little hobgoblin and the big, little goblin, big hobgoblin. And pretty much I turned the quarters of the wizard and the captain into pretty much quarters of the scientist and the captain. It was cool. They got, and the other kid that was there Saturday, he couldn't show up this time. So his drow rogue, we talked to him, how do we want to handle this? So his drow rogue jumps overboard as the hobgoblins are showing up. So he chickens out. And we'll figure out why he did that and where he ended up next week. But I was able to have the other 2 kids show up. I gave them the backstory. They showed up in another boat with their fishermen. So they were able to sneak attack all these hobgoblins that were around this area trying to get into where the party had holed themselves into, including going around the other side and going through the secret door, which the Seago so generously provided me. And hilarity ensued. They were able to, the kid playing the druid did some great stuff. The 8-year-old kid, interrogated the goblin, got him to talk, Got him to use his intimidation skill, which he didn't say I want to use intimidation, but he was telling this is what I want to do, and so he got it. He got it done. He rolled really well. The young lady was able to roll insight with the hobgoblin, and realizing he was lying to them later on when he said I was signaling sure, but I was telling him everything was okay, and so she executed him, which was great. That's favorite enemy, so what the heck. They were able to fight another one of these horrific monsters below deck, including a awesome moment. It was just about the end of the session. We really had to go, and the young lady, they'd found some poison or paralytic poison that the goblins were using to capture these monsters. And the only way they knew that is because of the interrogation. And she shot an arrow. She missed, but she said, what I really want to do is get that arrow that's sticking in the wood behind him. I want to get it and try to jam it into his leg. And so she narrates these really crazy jumping up on things. And she said, I want to slide in there, slide between his legs. And her brother's like, well, no, what you should really do is go upstairs and get another arrow. I said, listen, that doesn't look cool. I mean, that's awesome. That's all right. That would be great. But it would look really cool if she could do that, right? And so they all agreed yes. I got a little bit of stuff going on with the kids because they split the party. They were doing some stuff upstairs and stuff downstairs. And there's some etiquette, trying to teach them a little bit of etiquette of like, if you're not there, you can't actually start shouting instructions at them. Although you can talk out of character. We haven't gotten to that part yet. It's just I'm doing some wrangling first to see what the dynamic of the group is like. But we'll talk about that kind of stuff. So once again, I'm not exactly sure if this is entirely kosher, although the book tells me I can do this. I can do whatever I want. Because there are some parts of those books that, well, I'll talk about those books another time. But I said, yeah, fine, go ahead, make an athletics check. She's got good athletics and acrobatics, but she's got really good athletics because she took proficiency in it. And, she rolls, she gets something like a 17. It's ridiculous. So I say, yeah, slide right between this monster's legs. Go ahead, make an attack. Because you grab the arrow, and she made a successful attack. And so I let her do it all in action, one round. Is that kosher? I don't know, but it sure looked cool. She did it. She was able to do that, stab the thing, and it failed its saving throw against the poison. Fell down right on top of this hobgoblin that was they had helped out. Was helping them out. So they untied him. So show us what this is in here. And then the poor guy's fighting for his life, and he's the meat shield. Fell on top of him. And we kind of ended the session there. At that point, there was a lot of other information in the ship that I decided at this point, rather than role-playing back and forth, do I read this? Because they started to read the books. I let them know everything that was going on. And they know that the other goblins are in this house. And so they have to figure, well, how are we going to take care of these other fellows? And so they kind of know what's up at this point. I kind of, gave them some more information. Now here at this point, the 3 kids that showed up twice, well, they have enough XP to level up. And the other 2 do not. I do not know how the last guy was leveling them, whether he was using some kind of milestones or whether he was going to use XP. I'm probably going to use XP. So I'm guessing that probably what I'm going to do, even though it's not the most official, is to let these kids level up, and next week have them storm the house where the hobgoblins are, as second level characters. How realistic is that? I don't know, but D&D is not exactly realistic, and these kids are showing up to play, so have a good time. So it's very basic D&D, for the 5th edition. So it was a good time, and the kids did a lot better. And so the reason, part of what I saw, the D20 is everything, is I remember like I'm having roll this, having roll that, and the little girl's like, so we roll a 20-sided die again? I'm like, yep. She goes, this die seems very important. And I already told them it's very important. You're gonna get to know this die really, really well. You're gonna be rolling this a lot. So it was fun. They did really, really well, and it was a matter of juggling things around. Yes, give them inspiration. Thank you. That's one thing I have to put a little note to myself, giving them inspiration, because I should have given her inspiration for that. In fact, I will give her that next week. I'll let her know that she has inspiration for doing that, and I think the young kid for doing that interrogation. I might give him inspiration for that as well. That's something that's easy to forget, and I see that as a really powerful tool. It sucks that in the way inspiration works, you can only have inspiration or not have inspiration, so you can only gain advantage on one roll. But despite the fact that it's not as cool as style points in Ubiquity, it's still a neat thing to have, and it's something that I had to remind myself, and still have to remind myself, to give out style when when playing Ubiquity. And likewise, that's something that I should do a lot more often. And so I have to probably write myself a little note right here, say inspiration or give out inspiration, because that definitely, you're right, John, that would definitely help. Reward them from doing some really cool creative stuff, because that's you know I got less of the can I do this, can I do that, and some more of the like I'd like to do this thing that's kind of awesome. You can see them kind of brighten up when they say, well, can I do this? I'm like, yeah, go ahead, go do that. You're outside the door now. You push past this guy. Sometimes you actually have to roll to see if you can do some kind of a post check or whatever, depending on what made sense in the situation. We weren't doing a heck of a lot with move. I think the only time we did anything when move was really a factor is originally the young lady wanted to go slash off this thing's head, and I said, well, and her brother's like, there's no way you're going to make it across that ship in time. I said, he's right. Use an arrow. That actually worked out pretty well, because then she shot the poison arrow, and didn't hit him, but put it right real near him. So, that was cool. And it's trying to reinforce them every single time. Okay, I rolled this. Okay, did you roll? Did you add your stuff? And sometimes it was yes, sometimes it was no. Sometimes they're starting to remember a little bit more. I'm kind of trying to reinforce all the time. Roll a die, tell me what you actually rolled, and then add the number to it. What's the final number? To really kind of hammer that in, and think of a couple other things. I think I might have to really get them to write down or remember what damage their weapon does and that kind of stuff. But it's surprising. At the end of the day, it's surprising that they didn't know that this die did just about everything. And probably because they never had to worry about it. So, and it's surprising they didn't know, about how to add up all the bonuses, to make your final score from ability score and proficiency. But, okay, they find out now, and they're learning now. So, I think we're just going to keep reinforcing that. And I'm definitely making some judgment calls here and there, but, in a lot of ways, it feels very natural. And so I'm pretty happy. It was neat to see how excited the kids got when things moved really fast. Combat was fast. There wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of waiting around for your turn, even with 5 kids. A little bit, but not too much. And I'm just kind of trying to watch their faces too, make sure that I haven't lost anybody, because sometimes it's not quite like adults. Adults can be a real pain in the butt too. Look how long this video is. Holy crap. Sorry, guys. But I think with kids even more so, you have to make sure that you're not spending too much time away from them. And so I kept on trying to ask this one and that one and the other one, what are you doing here, there, and the other thing. It's so funny because they have this etiquette where they keep muting themselves. It might be from school. It's a two-edged sword. I tell them to unmute themselves, and they're all talking over each other sometimes. But I really like it. It's funny. Like, I'd rather have them be unmuted so they can answer me fast, because it seems to take them a while to unmute themselves. But it's neat. It's neat. And it's neat to see siblings play so well together. You got the 2 kids sitting right next to each other, and the other 3 kids are in separate rooms, but they're all pretty polite. So that was really encouraging. And so we'll see what happens next week. Does this rogue come back, or does the kid have to go do something else? And how are they going to handle this now? They want the ship. That's been the kids' dream ever since they got there, is to take over the ship. They know the hobgoblins are fixing the ship, so now they want them to continue to fix the ship, and they want to have a ship. So it's kind of interesting. Where are they going to go? Are we going to all of a sudden start sailing the ship? Because then I'll have to take I pretty much did not make too much stuff up about this world. I know basically kind of sort of what's happening in the grand scheme of things, but I want to see, where do they go? If they become interested in something and go that way, we'll do it. If they need more mission-based play where the queen needs to tell them to do something else, we'll do that. I think they're down for either. But it is funny, though. This group of kids, a younger group of kids, seems very proactive in terms of what they want. So I think it might be kind of fun. I'm gonna see. This is suspicion, but they might end up driving the bus an awful lot, and that would be kind of neat to see where the bus goes. I did have to kind of a couple times when they wanted to do something where they were sort of intra-party fighting. Well, I take the chest. I take this. I'm like, okay, well, guys, remember you said you didn't want to have any kind of fighting in the party. And of course, there's like some maturity issues, but we're gonna deal with those hurdles as they come. So it's really been fun. I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but I was very encouraged. I was very discouraged yesterday that that thing went so fast. I'm like, oh man, I've really got to do better. And solo play is hard, or like one on one. One player, one GM. That can be hard unless you've got a real a real thing going. But you know, today was like a blast. So really good time. The time went by very fast, and it was once again natural cliffhanger, or what do we do now? I think the goblins are on to us. We just told this guy to tell him everything's all right, and use my insight. The little girl loves the insight thing. She was totally hip when she asked me what insight was a couple weeks ago. I said it's kind of like when your brother's lying, you can tell. She's like, oh yeah, and this guy goblin telling me the truth. I'm like, she rolls 15. I'm like, no, he's lying. She had it. She killed him. But they know he probably told them something's up. Uh-oh. What do we do now? All right, kids. Thanks for listening, and I will. I'll talk some more about the game, maybe tomorrow, because there's something I saw very related to this. Once I bought a whole bunch of stuff on Amazon, I got something going across my Facebook feed for D&D Beyond, and about a part of it that would let me not have to manage anything about my character, not remember my spells, not know anything. We'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. Take it easy.